Any issues with recording second internals? Hello, my dear students. You have any issues with respect to your second internals? Okay. Next Monday you have second internals, right? You know the timetable? So now we are in the Raspberry Pi learning board, right? So the basic commands you have studied. Pi board also. Come to the hardware layout, right? Okay, that hardware layout, it will have the sum of the so your hardware layout of Raspberry Pi configure. This is a Raspy config. Okay, this is a the Raspberry Pi configuration tool in Raspbian, allowing you to easily enable the features like camera and to change your specific settings like as a keyboard layout and all, right? And it allows you to change your the keyboard layouts. Then config.txt is the one which is going to use for the configuration of the Raspberry Pi files. And wireless networking, the configuring your Raspberry Pi to connect to the wireless network using the Raspberry Pi 3s or Pi0W inbuilt wireless connectivity or the USB wireless dongle we are going to use. And wireless access point is there, that is going to use for the wireless across the access point using the Raspberry Pi 3 and Pi 0 W's inbuilt wireless connectivity or the USB dangle. Okay, using the proxy, so it is going to set up your Raspberry Pi to access the internet via proxy server. Okay, if you are going to use a proxy, right, it is going to set up your Pi to access the internet via the proxy server. HDMI config, guide to setting up your HDMI device including the custom settings. Okay, you know that HDMI means high definition multimedia interface device, which is going to be used for the setting up your custom settings. Okay. Next, if I want to configure our audio, so switch your audio output between HDMI and the 3.5 mm jack. Okay. Camera configuration command, which is going to installing and setting up the Raspberry Pi camera board. Okay. And external storage configuration, which is going to mounting and setting up your external storage on a Raspberry Pi. External storage means secondary storage devices like the secondary storage devices like DVDs, right, pen drives, hard disk, etc. Okay, and that is used for this. And for localization, if you want to set up your Raspberry Pi to work your local language time zone, you are going to give the command localization. And that if you want to set your default settings, default pin configuration, so this command is going to changing the default pin states. All it is going to give the default options, right? Device tree config, okay. This device tree overlays and parameters, and kernel command line, it is going how to set options in the kernel command line. UART configuration, so this command is going to set up the onboard UARTs, okay. And firmware warning icons, which is going to use it for description of warning icons displayed it in the firmware, which is going to detect any issues, okay. Then if you want to set LED warning flash codes, description of the different LED warning flashes that are going to be shown if the Raspberry Pi fails to boot or has to shut down, okay. And some basic devices for making your Raspberry Pi more secure is security of your Raspberry Pi device. And if you want to display, you have to save the screensaver. We are going to use some basic device for making your Raspberry Pi more secure. And the screensaver, how to configure screen blanking or the screensaver. The boot folder, what it's for and what it's is in, what's in it, okay. So we want to check it, means we have to give the boot folder. So come to the operating system of your Raspberry Pi. As you people know that any devices without the hardware, if you have only hardware, it is a waste only. If you have only software, it is a waste only. When you have both combination of hardware and software, then they are going to be useful, and we can do any work which is related to our the thing, okay. So that is when you know that, so every hardware component, so whether is we will have the operating system, right? So Raspberry Pi operating system also, various operating systems are there, so that can be installed on Raspberry Pi through your SD cards, secure devices cards, right? Most use of this micro SD slot located on the bottom of the board. The Raspberry Prime is primarily uses the Raspbian or a Debian based Linux operating system. The other third-party operating system that is available via official website include the Ubuntu, Mat, okay, Snappy, Ubuntu Core, Windows 10, IoT Core, RISC OS, and specialized distribution and for the Kodi Media Center and classroom management. Many other operating systems that also can be used on the Raspberry Pi. Okay. Then the best option if you want to experience a similar working with other operating system like Windows, Mac OS, and other popular Linux flavors like Ubuntu. And come with so if you have the we'll talk more about the operating system only. So it is not based on the operating system Linux, okay. We are going to use the special cut down version of RISC operating system Pisco, that is 116 MB cards, and it is larger for all the modes of PI 1 and 2, and it has been made available. It is free BSD and net BSD. It is going to plan 9 for Bell Lab and Inferno. Windows 10 IoT Core, no cost edition of Windows 10 offered by Microsoft that runs natively on the Raspberry Pi 2. XV6 is a modern re-implementation of 6th edition Unix operating system for teaching purposes. It is ported to Raspberry Pi from MIT XV6, which can boot noob. Okay. Hyco is an open source based operating system clone that can be complete for the Raspberry Pi and several other ARM boards. Right? You have heard the name ARM controller, right? So that ARM controller is called as a ARM board. So which are based on the Linux operating system. We have Xeon, okay, open source, Raspberry Pi Fedora Remix, okay, Jinto Linux, Diet Pi, Senti OS, Kali Linux, Arc OS, Kano OS, and Node SDK. So that media center operating system are like Open Electra, Liberal, ZBN, Prospects. Okay. Then audio operating system is Volumno, Pimozi Box, Renova Audio, Home Audio. Okay. Recall box. So suppose operating system which is going to set on Raspberry Pi. So pre-installed Noobs operating system is already available in many authorized as well as the interdependent seller. There are many other operating system Raspberry Pi in market like Nobus, Raspbian, and third-party operating system are also available like Ubuntu, Mate, okay, RISC, OS, etc. To set up an operating system, we need a SD card with minimum capacity of 8 GB. Okay. So when we are going to format the SD card, okay, so care should be taken copying the Nubus onto it. So download SD formatter 4.0 from SD Association website for either Windows or Mac. Follow the instructions to install the software. Insert the SD card into the computer or laptop SD card reader and make a note of the drive letter allocated to it. In SD card formatter, select the drive letter the CD card is in and format it. Okay. Then how we are going to do the operating system installation is go to the Raspberry Pi Foundation website and click on download section, right? Click on Nubus, then click on download zip button under the Nubus offline and network install and select a folder to save the zip file. Okay. Then extract all the files from zip. Once the SD card has been formatted, drag all the files in the extracted Nubus folder and drop them onto SD card drive. The necessary files will then be transferred to the SD card. Okay. When this process has finished, safely remove the SD card and insert it into the Raspberry Pi. This is how we are going to install the operating system on the SD card. So when we are going to boot on the first, plug in the keyboard, mouse and monitor cables, right? Now plug in the USB cable into the Raspberry Pi. New Raspberry Pi will boot and a window will appear with a list of different operating systems, right? We can that we can install. We can recommend using Raspbian tick and box next Raspbian and clicking on the install. Raspbian will then run through all its installation process. Note that this can take for some time. Okay. When the installation process has completed, the Raspberry Pi configuration menu, it is a Raspberry config will load. Here we should set the time and date for our region. That is different zones will have different regions will have different time settings, right? Enable the Raspberry Pi camera board and or even create the users also. Okay, this is about the about your Raspberry Pi operating system installation. Okay, so I wanted to share you some of the commands with respect to the Raspberry Pi, right? So you have, that is a Raspy config. What I told is these are the general commands for your Raspberry Pi. Okay, so Raspy config is our configuration settings menu, and if you are going to do the clear, it clears the data from terminal. That is whatever the previous execution is there on the screen, that is going to be cleared. Date, so it is going to display the current date. And reboot immediately. Shutdown -H. Now the shutdown system immediately. If you are going to give a shutdown hyphen, okay, it is going to shut down the Now that is about the reboot. Shutdown option, when you are going to type it, it shuts down the system immediately. And for example, suppose I want to open a particular text editor, so I can give one text editor called as a Nano. If I want to give give the name Nano, it opens, okay, to edit. You can give the program name and type in the program. So you can write the program using Python also, right? So now the nano space example dot text, if you give, it opens the example dot text in a text editor Nano. Okay. So power off, it is going to shut down immediately. Suppose if you are going to give a power off, so no need to shut down, go to the shutdown option, it automatically shut down immediately. Okay. Then the suppose you can set the time at what time your system should shut down, like this: set down -H space 1:22. Okay, to shut down at 1:22 a.m. Okay, you are going to set the time at what time you are supposed to shut down your system, right? Okay, then suppose you want to get a upgradation of the software package, you can give apt-get upgrade. So what it will do is, it upgrades all of the software packages we have installed in the Raspberry Pi. Okay, and suppose you want to packages, you want to upgrade all the packages, so apt-get update synchronizes the list of packages on our system to the list in the repositories. Use this before installing new package to make sure we are installing the latest version. Okay, and then so the startx, so it opens the graphical user interface. Okay, then directory and file commands, these are the general commands that we are going to use for Raspberry Pi. There are some commands for the creation of the directory, removing of the directory, right, and renaming of the directory. Okay, that related to your directory and file commands. Say make directory, mkdir new directory, it creates a new directory name called as a whatever the directory name you are going to give. Okay, so mv space new folder moves the file or directory name to the new folder to a specified location. And rm new file text it removes the files or deletes the files. Okay, rm stands for removing or deleting the file, whatever the file name you are going to give. Okay, rmdir new directory, so whatever the, suppose you want to delete a directory. Okay, so you want to remove the directory from that, so you are going to give that. So rmdir, and you have to give the directory name. It deletes the directory specified. Only if the directory is empty, then only it is able to remove. Otherwise, you have to remove all the files which are present in that particular directory and then you have to give the remove command for the directory. Okay, if contents are there, the directory will not get deleted. Okay, touch new file.txt. It creates a new empty file which is going to name it as a the whatever the file name you have given in the current directory. Okay, so suppose I want to display the contents of the file. I use cat command. Cat, then you have to give the name of the file. So it is going to display the contents of the file with whatever the name of the file you have given. Okay. CD stands for change directory. So suppose if you are going to specify with the front slash with the number of directories, then it is keep on changing the directory to specified directory. Okay, so now suppose I want to list all the files in the directory. As we are already familiar in the Unix operating system, so that is a or the Linux operating system, ls stands for the list. Okay, and it lists of all the files in the directory, and these are the commands which are related to your directory and the files. If you have any doubts with regard to uh, the commands what I have discussed, general purpose commands and directory and file commands, okay, just I will name it: make directory, move directory, rm directory, okay, rm remove the files, mkdir make the directory, mv it copies the moves the file from one directory to another directory, and cat it displays the file contents, cd it changes the directory, and ls it lists the file. They will ask the question, so write a short note on Raspberry Pi commands like that. Okay, so these are the commands related to your directory and files, and general commands like clear, date, reboot, shutdown, right, and editor option, okay, and shutdown with a proper setting of the time. Suppose I am going to give shutdown minus h, say 12, okay, 12 0 sorry 12:56, then it is going to shut down at a particular time whatever we are set time. Okay, then other set of commands, Raspberry Pi commands, or the networking and internet commands. Suppose we want to work on that commands, we use a IW config to check which wireless adapter is currently active, right? Suppose I want to go check the status of wireless connection. I can give IF config. It is going to check the configure the status of your wireless connection, whether it is in working condition or not working, it is accessible or not accessible, right? And ping command is used to test the connectivity between the two devices connected on the network. Okay, so the networking and internet commands. Next is Nmap. You know that Nmap is a one network security tool, right? So it is used to scan the network and list connected devices, protocols, port numbers, and other information. Nmap is a command with the map that command that is called as a network security tool, right? So it what it does it scans the network, and it is going to list the information about the devices connected and their protocols and the port number and other information that what time that is particular is going to connect it, right? And there will be a another scan WLAN 0 IW list. It is going to list of currently available wireless networks. Okay, and these are the commands related to your network. Okay, and it will have Nmap. Okay, WLAN 0 scan. Okay, then ping IF config. Okay, then IW config. Next come for the system information commands, right? So system information commands, first one is a cat. It shows the details about the memory, cat slash process slash memo information if I am going to give. Cat is used for what? to display the information. So the cat shows memo information. It shows the details about the memory. Okay, so cat slash process slash version, if you give, it shows the version of Raspberry Pi currently what we are using. Okay, so df minus h shows the information about the available disk space. Df means disk space. Okay, how much memory space is available will be displayed by this command df minus h. Okay, then df slash colon, it shows how much memory, how much free disk space is available. Aishwarya Lakshmi, mute your mic.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, and df slash front slash colon, it shows how much free disk space is available. Okay, and free, if you are going to type a free, it shows how much free memory is available. And host name minus L, it shows the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. Okay, and uh, is USB, it lists the USB hardware connected to Raspberry Pi. Okay, and VC gen command measure -temp shows the temperature of the CPU. Okay, VC gen CMD get I underscore mem arm and VC gen.
Aishwarya Lakshmi anta undi. Yes, Aishwarya Lakshmi anta undi.
Okay, then this is shows the memory split between the CPU and the GPU. So these are the commands which are connected to the system information commands. Okay, now come for the we can, I told no, we can do the programming Raspberry Pi with the Python. So you people are already studied the Python programming, right? And the applications in the, I think in the 5th semester of your class, right? So the Raspberry Pi is an amazing single board computer capable of running Linux and whole host of applications. So Python is a beginner friendly programming language that is used in schools, web development, scientific research and in many other industries. Okay. So to get started with developing Python programs using Raspberry on the Raspberry Pi, okay, Linux supports a Python out of the box. Henceforth, you can run any Python program that runs on a normal computer. However, the general purpose input-output capability provided by the general purpose input-output pins of Raspberry Pi that makes it useful device for Internet of Things. Raspberry Pi can be interfaced with variety of sensors, actuators, okay, which is going to use with the general purpose input output pins and also the special and serial interfaces. So input from Raspberry Pi can be processed and actions can be taken. For the instance, suppose you want to send the data to the server, sending an email triggering a relay switch. Okay, so gives the out of the simple Python programs that can be, which are going to be executed on the using the Raspberry Pi. Okay. So I told that the one second. Raspberry Pi which is having an inbuilt Wi-Fi. Okay. So now which makes Raspberry Pi to suitable for IoT application. So that so now why we are studying the Raspberry Pi is because we want to adopt in the on IoT. Okay, we want IoT smart devices. Okay, so we are going to it is more suitable for IoT applications. So that by using the IoT technology, this monitoring system works by uploading the temperature value to the ThinkSpeak cloud. By this project, you can able to learn how to handle the cloud-based applications using the API keys. So in this monitoring system, we use the Thinking Speak cloud. Okay, the cloud which is going to be suitable in view of the sensor logs to form the graph plots. So it will be very easy to plot the graphs using this okay, and then here we created one field to monitor the temperature value, and that can be reconfigurable to monitor a number of sensor values in various fields. This basic will teach you how to work with a cloud by using LM35 as a temperature sensor to detect the temperature and to upload those values into the cloud. That is why we are going to use the uh, uh, things be cloud. Okay, that is the reason why we are going to use the so now the to run your Raspberry Pi software. So what is a mini using Python programming? You suppose you want to design. So what is a requirement of your device hardware requirement, right? And Python libraries and the software requirements. Okay, now hardware requirement is a Raspberry Pi, SD card, power supply, right? VGA to the that is a video graphic adapter to your high definition multimedia interface converter. Okay, and temperature sensor LM35. Okay, and software requirement is a Raspbian Stretch OS operating system, SD card formatter, and Windows 32 disk image. Okay, for etcher. And which are the Python libraries we require for in order to handle our IoT network is RPI, that is Raspberry Pi. Okay, GPIO, that is general purpose input output as GPI to access the GPI pins of Raspberry Pi. Time library for time delay, and urlib to handle the URL using Python programming. So this is a requirement. Suppose I want to use the Python as a programming language on Raspberry Pi, right? So these are the libraries which are required to handle the our IoT network. Okay. Now come to the different temperature sensors. What is their role in the Raspberry Pi environment, right? So the DS18B20 temperature sensor, it is a one-wide programmable temperature, okay, sensor from maximum integrated. It is widely used to measure the temperature in hardware environments like in chemical solutions, mines or soil, etc. The construction of the sensor is rugged and also can be purchased with a waterproof option, making mounting process easy. It can also measure the wide range of temperature from 55 degrees Celsius minus 55 degrees Celsius to plus 125 degrees Celsius with a decent accuracy of plus or minus 5 degrees Celsius. Each sensor has a unique address and it requires only one pin of the MCU to transfer data, so that it is very good choice for the measuring temperature at multiple points without compromising much of your digital pins on the microcontroller. So we can transfer the data which is required by the pin MCU, right? And so that it is very good choice without the digital microcontroller, we can transfer the data. So what are the applications of this DS18 B20 temperature sensor is This is going to be used for the hardware environments to measure the temperature, okay, and liquid temperature measurement. Applications where temperatures has to be measured at multiple points. So we use this DS18B20 temperature sensor to measure the temperature in different points. Okay. Now pin configuration. So number, pin name and description. See here. Now pin 1 number, pin name, ground, connect to the ground of the circuit. Okay. 2 is VCC, that is a power sensor, can be of 3.3 minimum voltage and up to 5 volts. And third is data. Okay. This pin gives output the temperature value which can be read by using the one-layered method. I will show that diagram. See, this is the DS18B20 temperature sensor pin out. Okay, and that side you can see the temperature sensor. Okay, you can see ground, okay, data and VCC. You can see the pins. Black is for ground, red is for VCC, and orange is for data. Okay, those are the pin colors. Okay, ground will be there, maximum voltage is minimum voltage is 3.3 and maximum voltage is 5 volts, right? And the data uh, used for pin gives out the temperature value which can be read using the one wire method. Okay, this is a diagram of your DS182B20 temperature sensor. Okay, so how we are going to connect your Raspberry Pi through SSH. Okay, so you can access the command line of Raspberry Pi remotely from another computer or device on the same network using the SSH. The Raspberry Pi will act as a remote device. You can connect to it using the client on other machine. So first what you have to do is you have to set up your local area network and wireless connectivity, and then second step is you have to enable SSH. After enabling the SSH on the headless Raspberry Pi, add a file to your secure device, that is a semiconductor diode card on another machine, and you have to set up your client. Okay. So this is how you are going to connecting your Raspberry Pi via SSH. Okay. So whatever the topics I have covered today, just go through that. Okay. Today I have covered the Raspberry Pi commands, that is general purpose commands, directory and file commands, networking and internet commands, right? Then how we have what is um, how we are going to install the operating system, right? A Linux based operating system or the audio operating system, right? Media center operating system. Then the Raspberry Pi DS120B20 temperature sensor, and hardware and software requirement when you are going to run a Python program on that to handle IoT devices, IoT networking. Okay, so we are going to use a wireless temperature sensor devices, and how we are, why we chosen the Python as a programming on the Raspberry Pi operating system, right? And different the hardware layout commands. Okay, what I have covered today. So if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me. Next class I will continue with the next topic that is related to your the DS temperature sensor only. If you have any doubts, you please ask me. Otherwise, I will wind up the class. Any doubts you have? Dear students, you have to open up and you have to ask, not simply connecting the device and roaming here and there. See, Aishwarya Lakshmi, you have to mute the mic, Aishwarya Lakshmi. Otherwise, we are instead of asking, instead of listening to IoT lecturing, we have to listen to your house things. Okay? Shall I wind up the class? Have you today is the last date for submission of your assignment 2 and the quiz 2, right? Those who are failed to